Temptation is not sin, but sin is giving into the temptation and then starting to feed that very temptation over and over and over again. Sometimes it becomes a stronghold or what we call a soul tie. I remember meeting a man one year, and I think I'm pretty safe to say this because it's been so long ago, and wasn't affiliated with any church that I pastored. Uh, he folded his paper in the weirdest way, and I had enough uh, inquisitive enough to ask him why. Why do you fold your paper that way? That's really weird. He said, "Oh, it brings me back to my girlfriend I had before I got married." I was like, okay, okay, I don't need to ask anymore. I pried a little deeper, but I'm thinking to myself, that might be a habit to stop. You know, fold it like a normal person. Don't go back to that memory because that memory might be keeping you from moving into the future preferred will that God has for our lives. So he says, finally, my brethren, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things. What a great admonition. Imagination is the human faculty, and its screen is like on your television or your cell phone, maybe active or like the movies. And in a very real sense, and this is going to floor you, I'm going to help you here. Everybody here has a photographic memory. Everybody does. Now, you might argue with the phrasing of that, but how many here had to use a map to get here today? Hopefully you didn't need that. Talk to your cell phone. Help me find the old Bible church. I mean, after a while, we kind of have some of that down. I can visualize very easily my closet. I can visualize in the dark where things are at in my house. I'm not going to trip over anything, hopefully, because I've got like a memory. It's got a little retention there, and it's pretty photographic. I mean, I could describe probably in detail for long periods of time everything in our house, and you could too. And that's what's important because these pictures that come, they need to be controlled, they need to be censored, they need to be rated, and then they need to be permitted or refused. For the Word of God is living and active, sharper than any double-edged sword, and it penetrates even to the dividing of soul and spirit. We're a spirit being. We have a soul and we live in a body. The body may be the least important part, but the soul is how we think, feel, and decide. We think, we feel, we decide in our soul part. We have feelings. We don't walk by feelings, we walk by faith, but we need to make good decisions. So he says here, in all those things, it really divides there and gives us insight. Nothing in all creation is hidden from God. This is Hebrews 4:12 and 13. Nothing in all creation is hidden from God's sight. Everything is uncovered and laid bare before his eyes, to whom we must give an account. He can see everything. In Proverbs, it tells us in 4:23, keep thy heart with all diligence, for out of it are the issues of life. It's really important. God looks at what we have on our walls. He knows these things. And God will hold us accountable for what happens in these chambers. It's not just in word or deed, it's in thought. The thoughts are really important. Create in me a clean heart, the psalmist David said, and renew a right spirit within me. Search me, O God, the psalmist said, and know my heart. Try me and know my thoughts. That's a prayer we don't pray too often, but we should. Search me, O God, know my heart, and search my thoughts. If the walls of your mind could talk, what would they say? You got that at the old Threshers building. That building it's just not much to look at, honestly. It really isn't. But it's got these walls, and you wonder what happened through the history there. What if every layer could be peeled back from how that all began? And we say we're preaching an old-fashioned service, but what do you think really was preached there years ago? And has it changed? I mean, that's an old Methodist church. And I don't know much about the Methodist church. I believe in the Methodist church. There are people who probably still preach what they preached way back then. But my, oh my, how times have changed in most churches, and many believers, including some of us. And we have to be very careful there that you kind of peel back and what does your mind say? And let's just say we had the technology, and we don't. But back in 1980, Glenn McLean, I heard him preach, and he said, there will be a day coming when you'll be able to look at your TV, and your TV will be able to look at you. We were all like, it's going to come through the fiber optic network. There was no fiber optic network then, but it came. My dad's company even serviced the fiber optic network. I was like, wow, he could see ahead. What if there was something that this big screen, well, it's up now, and it could say, would anybody like to come forward? It can read your mind and project it up there for us. Who's first? Hoping that doesn't happen. No, it's strange. And then there'd be other people that come up there and say, put me in line. I'm ready to go, man. Go for it. But wouldn't that be something if we could just have that confidence to know we're keeping those things in check? We're keeping those things in saying. So if the walls of your home could speak, what would they say? Keith Green used to say, if it doesn't work at home, it doesn't work. If your Christianity can't get out of this building or out of a church setting and it doesn't work at home, it doesn't work. That's not Christianity. You're not any more saved than you were. It's got to work in the home. What would the walls of your home say? I think about home. What would they say? Every once in a while, and it hasn't happened for quite some time, but somebody say, the pastor's coming over, you better put that away. I'm not God. I mean, really. Somebody will say to me, well, they're working on maybe a habit or an addiction or something. Maybe they're, puffing on a cigarette or something. They'll say, hey, the pastor's going to be there. What should I do? And I'll say, well, probably do what you normally do. Because there's no sense in trying to hide from the pastor. I mean, God knows you're dealing with this and you're working on it or whatever it might be. But there's no sense in trying to hide everything. I mean, if you got to hide it, you have to ask yourself whether you should be doing it. If it's got to go into a closet or under the bed or in the toilet tank or whatever, you got to hide it. Maybe beware. I grew up with an addict, and I can tell you, addicts know how to hide stuff, but they also know how to find stuff, and they're not really good at eventually concealing it. This addiction doesn't just go there like once every 5 years. It's like a constant path. They beat a path to there. What would the walls of your prayer life look like? Your prayer life, not church prayer. What would they say? Would they testify of persistence, consistency, persistent prayer, really praying about something? Let's just say these walls were all filled with prayer requests, but it's your home, it's your life, it's your pattern, it's your activity. When nobody else knows about it, you don't get any praise for it, you don't get any glory, no recognition, no trophies, no awards, no recognition in church. You just praying all the time. What does it look like? Dear Lord, love you. Pray I have a good day. Amen. That'd be pretty pathetic, wouldn't it? You get a card, you go all out for somebody, you go to their wedding, and you're like, man, I can really say they love this. I've known them for years, or something like that. Or you go to a birthday party or a Christmas gift or something, and somebody writes a thank you card and says, thank you, Mike. What is that? That just needs to go to the shredder. You could actually say, I so appreciate that new Corvette you gave me. And how did you know I loved red with white interior? I mean, you got to put something on there that shows you recognize that the person knew that you like this, and it is specific in the general. But prayer sometimes needs to be a whole lot more specific than it is, and intentional to say, God, I've not gone this way before. Honestly, truthfully, tonight, John, you're preaching to that old threshers. We've not gone there before. We don't even know what tonight holds. We don't know for sure. We do not know. I left church today, and one of the men said, he came in, he said, my sister's got a hold of me and said, in Afghanistan right now, people are being killed, believers. We don't know what tomorrow holds. We don't know, but we know who holds tomorrow. But are we having a prayer life that shows that we actively believe He is holding tomorrow? Lord, I'll check in with you if I need you. 3 years later, we check in. I've been doing pretty good, I think. That would be horrible. And that's why it's important to say, I'm going to check in and get God moving in my life, and that wall would speak of persistent prayer and coming in and humbling myself and saying, God, what does this look like? What if the walls of your married life, for those who are married, could speak? What would they speak of? I've done a lot of weddings. I can tell you one thing it should say is a lot of honor. When you honor God, He'll honor you. When you honor your spouse, God will honor you. And that means you prefer them, you cherish them, you put them in a place, and you do it through not only your thoughts, but your actions, your words, your deeds. It happens. Two are better than one. You should live considerately. Peter spoke to men in particular and said, if you don't live considerately with your wife, skip the prayer. It's ineffectual. You better start practicing giving up your life as you said you would for the other, as Jesus laid down His life. We're to just be living considerately. I often ask the question to couples, are you checked in or are you checked out? I do profiling with a disc profile, and I can tell you if a person has checked out but hasn't left yet. Right? They can check out and not leave. Well, they think I'm there, but I'm not there. I checked out a long time ago. I'm just waiting for the opportune time to hit the road. I'm waiting until I get a little nest egg, and the bigger the better. I'll just hang on and, eat the free meals and that, or however they think it in their mind, it would be the gravy train, and then it's done. But they've checked out ahead of time. Check in every day and be there. Be there. Be engaged. The old thing, people would have a newspaper and be reading it. Somebody else would be watching the TV. Oh, what was that? You'd be better off throwing the TV in the pond and the newspaper, which I won't say anything about that. I get myself in trouble, get another check on YouTube. But it's not good. The Bible tells us the weapons of warfare are not carnal, but they are mighty through God to the pulling down of strongholds. And that's the greatest news ever, because these things that are in your mind, they can come down just like the walls of Jericho came down flat, forever done. Casting down imaginations, every high thing that exalteth itself against the knowledge of God, and every high thing that exalts itself against the knowledge of God, and bringing into captivity every thought to the obedience of Christ. That's warfare. Every thought is not a God thought. Every thought is not a your thought. It could be the devil's thought. But I bring every thought into captivity and say a thought is not a sin. Dwelling on that thought and acting on it is. We're living with all kinds of things that can permeate the mind. And I want to just close here with a thought of how God can speak into your heart. And this is something for those who are joining us by video and those of us who are here. And I know a number of our people are not here. But some of you will remember, not forever ago, but a few years ago, God woke me up in the middle of the night. But first I had a dream. And I hadn't thought about this forever. But it's in a few of my favorite things. So I had this dream, and while I was in this dream, I had a recognition of a person in my life when I was a child who bullied me. And because of technology today, I'm not going to get into great detail there. However, I will say that I was quite intimidated and felt that there was no other way I could do but to do what he requested. because in a sense, my life was threatened. Now, I was young, and therefore I didn't understand it probably wasn't as threatened as I thought. But they had a barn behind their house, a little shed, a little coop or whatever it was. It wasn't huge. But I can remember going over there, and he said, "Come here." And then he had a string that went up this way, that way, that way, down. And it was connected to like a 38 or a 44, a large handgun shell. It was a large shell, but no gun. You know, there's no gun. And when you're young, you don't understand. It's hard to fire one without one. But he said, "Listen, if you don't go home and get me some budding beef," if you've never seen budding beef, it's not the top of the line. So his appetite wasn't at, you know, the best. But he said, "If you don't get that, I'm going to kill you." I'm like, "Kill me? How am I going to get it?" He said, "You know how. You'll sneak in, you'll get it." Well, I knew it was in our fridge. And I'm like, "Yeah, I can get some of that stuff." And sure enough, I did. Boy, I thought to myself, thank God I could save my life. That very dream came to me in the middle of the night. And then the Lord said, "There's Ehud and Eglon in Judges chapter 3. And I'll just tell you what the Lord said. He said, Ehud was a deliverer. Ehud came because the people cried out to me to be freed from their 18 years of being oppressed. And I brought a deliverer, a left-handed man by the name of Ehud, to take care of Eglon, who was, and the King James says it this way, a fat man." And I think this is pretty significant because he had oppressed the people and had become not only obese in body, but he had oppressed them and become obese in ego. He had oppressed the people. So God raised up a left-handed man by the name of Ehud, who took an 18-inch dagger on his right side so he could pull it with his left hand and stick it into, yeah, it's very detailed in the Bible, by the way, much more than maybe people can handle, but it's going to ruin your appetite for a corn dog later for sure. But it said, even the King James says even the dirt spilled out. So it's pretty gory. Think of it. This man had been oppressing, and God said, enough's enough. And so I woke up and had this vision, had this dream, and then the Lord said, I'm going to deliver today. I'm going to bring deliverance to my people. And I was so excited to get to church. I was like, oh man, this is going to be good. This is going to be good. And that Sunday, Tammy Swells was with us, our missionary to the Ukraine. And Tammy was here with us, and she had come through a huge battle. Very, very sullen and needing victory and needing help or whatever. Even just saying, we got to pray for her. And I just felt the Lord said, this isn't it. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I'm like, well, maybe later at mental health, because we went out to mental health every Sunday there. And we prayed for Tammy, and it was really good, really, really moving. But it wasn't the same. So then I load up and I go out to mental health, and I got there a little early. So I was praying a little bit, and we brought Tootsie Rolls, Tootsie Pops, that kind of stuff out there. And normally I didn't, but I thought, I need to eat a Tootsie Roll. I'm feeling it. How many of there are times where you just feel I'm going to eat a Tootsie Roll? So I eat a Tootsie Roll, but with my little OCD or whatever I've got going on, I'm like, I can't just leave the paper here. I've got to go throw it away. So I go to throw away the Tootsie Roll wrapper, and I throw it into the garbage can, and I look down. And this is the exact one that was in there. A budding beef wrapper that was empty. That was the only thing in there. I'm like, holy smokes. That's more than I needed, but thank you, Lord. I'm getting the picture. Something big is going to happen today. And I shared that Sunday at mental health the very thing I just shared with you. And there began weeping, weeping. God touched every person and set captives free in that service. And it had nothing to do with me. I even got a little a little like, what?